Ramapad Swami. Go on ahead. So Ramapad Swami has been a practitioner of Bhakti Yoga for 50 plus years. He is a disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, the author of Bhagavad Gita as it is, the Srimad Bhagavatam as we know it presented in English, and the foremost proponent of spreading this Vedic wisdom all over the world. So he was a disciple of him. On top of that, he has been a monk in the sannyas ashram for 40 years now, and a sannyas monk, they travel constantly, except maybe during something like COVID, which was unprecedented. But other than that, they live their life traveling. I picked Maharaj up from the airport today, and he was just in Baltimore, and he was in Boston before that, and he's here and he's there. So they live their life traveling, preaching, and sharing this wisdom with everybody. Maharaj has got a very special presentation on the mysteries of sound, which we kind of just embarked in a little bit with the kirtan. So without further ado, please hear from Maharaj, and thank you all for joining us. And Maharaj.
Where's the power?
Oh, that's my job, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're close at least, approximately. Are people going to come late?
They may.
If they come late, do me a favor. Come forward.
Please come.
So people that come late don't have to step over you and...
Okay. Maharaj, would you prefer less light to see the presentation?
Yeah, probably a little bit less is good.
Okay. So, I don't know how much.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
Very good.
So, I can do my job, drop this up nicely, and I will work on that.
Okay. Mysteries of sound. One of the rules that I've learned in the course of time is a leadership rule. One of the characteristics of a leader is to give credit where credit is due. You heard that one before. So the credit for this opening slide and maybe a quarter of the bones that make the body of this presentation is Bhanu Swami. Bhanu Swami is also sannyasi, and he happens to be a very learned person. He has translated from Sanskrit into English about 10 volumes, like, very heavy, condensed philosophical texts, without naming the names. He's a very bright, maybe brilliant person. He was born in Japan, but he learned Sanskrit and translated. And I saw a video presentation of this. I asked him if he could send me a copy. He sent me a copy within 24 hours. He's very liberal as well as being very learned. And so this opening slide, and some of the content is his. Mysteries of sound. It's going to be a little bit of a tour. Material sound, spiritual sound, how material sound affects matter, how spiritual sound affects matter, our body and our mind and our existence, our spiritual existence. So first of all, what is sound? The common idea of sound is a vibration, and that vibration moves air, and air vibration hits the eardrum resonates, sends a signal to the nervous system that goes to the mind and says, aha, there's a sound. And then the intelligence analyzes what's that sound, and that's material sound. It's vibrational. And practically using the terms interchangeably. Why do some sounds affect our being more deeply than others? We're going to touch on that. Why is the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra so effective and forming material consciousness. So those are our topics. Srila Prabhupada, this is a lecture from New Vrindavan, 1972. The beginning of this material world is from the sound vibration. I think the scientists also agree, the materialistic scientists, that from sound everything emanates. And they do say that, we'll hear it. According to, this is the lecture at the bottom, New Vrindavan, sound is the symptom of the sky. By sound we can understand there is sky or ether. Then, by sound vibration, there is circulation of air. You've got practical experience. When there's a very loud sound vibration, sometimes there's a very strong wind also. And so by sound vibration, the wind is started, and by strong wind, electricity is produced. From electricity, water is produced, perspiration, and from water, earth is produced. This is Sankhya, the unfolding of material elements. You see what the verse is from Canto 1, Chapter 2, Bhagavatam. So, sound is the original element of creation. In Sanskrit is called Shabda, means sound. Shabda, Brahman. Brahman, or the absolute truth, first appears. Absolute truth becomes knowable by sound. In Bhagavad Gita it is said, the Lord says, Rasoham Apsakonteya Prabhasi Prabhasmi Sachi Suryayo Shabda Ke. Shabda Ke. Shabda means sound. If we want to see God, let us hear, first of all, the sound vibration, because that is the beginning. It's the beginning of spiritual awakening, but it's also the beginning of sound. From spiritual sound comes material sound. That is, this realm is a reflection of the spiritual realm. I'm going to touch on this further. Some of you should have received. Anyone that didn't get some handout items? Okay, there's a QR code, and you should have gotten them. If you didn't get them, proceed if you get them. There's a PDF where, from the Vedic text, it says the original sound before creation is Om, and Om vibrates, and when Om vibrates, matter also vibrates and creation takes place. And through the syllable Om, one can contact the spiritual realm, although we're in the material realm. That's the little background. Okay, so the first section is material science's conception of material sound and data. So here's what some people say that are in the science realm. Whether or not we hear it, everything has a sound, a vibration of its own. In other words, everything means everything. Each part of our bodies has its own natural frequency. And vibrational medicine is based on the idea that disease is a result of those natural frequencies getting out of tune, whether due to stress, illness, or environmental factors. A friend of mine, out in the countryside in Texas, has established a little retreat center. Some of you may know who Vatsal is. Anyone know Vatsal? Prabhupada disciple. So, because he started a retreat center, he wanted to find out what's going out there, what's going on in the wellness marketplace, modern. So there was some little wellness event in Houston. He attended it, and he, much to his surprise, sound and wellness it's a wave. In the alternative medicine realm. Here's a chart that shows parts of the body, the brain, the heart, the head, lungs, etc., etc. There's a natural frequency for each of the parts of the body, a healthy vibrational frequency. And if it's too high or too low, then there's unwellness in that part of the body. So sound healing is to connect that frequency that's healthy for the body with that part of the body. I'll give an example. There's one allopathic medicine that I've been taking for a number of years, and it's to a thyroid problem. The thyroid gland is somewhere in this region of the body, and it regulates all the other glands of the body or organs of the body. And if it's hypo, it's overactive. If it's hyper, it's underactive. And there's symptoms of both. And there's a way to test it. Blood tests tell what's going on with your thyroid. So I take Synthroid. I didn't want to, but because I said, once I start, I'm going to have to do it for the rest of my life. So I take it. Because it was horrible without it. Now, there is a device called a Healy. There's a picture of it, and one of the programs on the Healy, here's a Healy, I use it daily. So there's one program for thyroid, so I run it every day. There's other programs for memory, other programs for this and that and the other thing. Soft and hard functions of the body and mind. And it's effective, it works. Again, the same group of people they study this. Everything in the universe has a vibration or frequency. Our physical bodies, every flower, plant, tree, and mineral, different minerals have different frequencies. It's one of the ways of identifying the purity of a particular mineral. Does it match its standard frequency? The fact that everything is in a natural state of vibration means everything is creating sound. Electrons and protons and atoms are moving. And movement is vibration, and vibration makes a sound. So atoms make a sound. You put atoms together and they get molecules, and molecules vibrate. They have descriptions of different ways that molecules can vibrate, and molecules make sound. So it's not only people make sound, or animate entities make sounds, but there's vibration in everything. And so there's sound in everything. We can't hear all those sounds because the range of human audition, according to people that study this, is between 20 to 20,000 hertz. Here's a chart that shows hertz, Hertz. Now the name, what this little thing down here says is where this name Hertz came from was some gentleman, a science researcher that gave proof about electromagnetic waves, and electromagnetic waves were measured, and so the measurements got named after him. So the chart shows the range of human hearing. It begins at 20 hertz. Elephants and moles can hear below that. What we can't hear, they may be able to hear. Dogs and cats can hear above the human range. Bats and dolphins hear much higher range. So what is all this? There's the normal idea of sound, that's pressure of air because of some vibration, air movement hits the eardrum, and so forth and so forth. So that's sound. Unwanted sound is noise. there's lots of sounds we don't hear. Now I'm going to do a little demonstration of that. In 2005, astronomers made an announcement. This is their idea, that sound waves shape the universe. You know, that it's based on studies. This is their idea, which it matches or very similar to the Vedic idea. The early universe rang with the sound of countless cosmic bells which filled the primordial darkness. It sounds like poetry. But so they're saying that sound created the universe that we see. Some years later, some scientists in Tel Aviv University, they made the following reportings. There you see a plant that hasn't received water for quite some time, and there's some very sensitive microphones, and the sensitive microphones make up the sound that these microphones were picking up as the plant is indicating it's dehydrated. Now it's not exactly communicating, saying, give me water, I'm thirsty. But the point is, there's sound vibrations that are not audible to the human ear on the lower range. And here's one from Sweden, 2014. They claim they were able to hear the sound of an atom. Now I don't have a recording of the sound of an atom, but that's what they claim. And NASA goes in higher ranges. This is a NASA recording of plasma slamming into our planet's magnetic field lines. And we don't hear it, but NASA was able to record it. And this will go more quickly. The basic idea is there's sound within everything, and the human ear can pick up at certain frequencies, 20 to 20,000, but there's frequencies that we don't hear. Now comes medicine. Modern science and technology are helping us listen to sound beyond human range. Sound therapy is a revolutionary approach to medical treatment and prevention. It's kind of now supplementing, and in some cases it's replacing allopathic medicine. And there's, some articles, there's a link if you want to find out more about it. It helps people on the physical, it helps people on the emotional level. That's in the middle paragraph. Sound therapy helps a person release fear and sadness, improves the feelings of loneliness and despair. It cleanses harmful emotions. You can put in harmful emotions with the wrong kinds of sounds. Deepak Chopra and many others are proponents of this sound therapy system. Here's a chart that's showing what the frequency is of every note in the musical scale. Now, music is an essential part of cultures everywhere since the beginning of history. And each note has a particular frequency of hertz. And music is a combination of frequencies, and people enjoy music. They enjoy different types of music. There's a medical science of healing, where certain frequencies, I don't know so much about this, solfeggio frequencies, certain ones have been found to be beneficial in balancing chakras to help heal. There's a yogi in Mysore. Anyone here from India? You ever been to Mysore? You know where it is? And you know where it is?
Mysore, yeah.
Okay. I've never been there, but I spoke to two people who have been there, and there's a yogi who practices this system, and according to one of the two people, he's a multi-billionaire because it works. He's able to heal people where allopathic medicine can't help them. And it's based upon the principle of each of the 7 chakras. There's a certain natural frequency range, and if it's too high or too low, then there's illness or some pain or some difficulty in that area of the body. And so he finds out where the pain is, and he finds out what the frequencies are, and he tries to restore to a healthy frequency. And it's effective. So if you ever have a health problem that you can't sort out with Western medicine, you have at least one option here, Mysore. On the left, there's a chart of brain waves, and so again, it's about sound vibration, but the brain makes waves. There's frequencies of sound from the brain, and there are different ranges, like deep sleep, light sleep, awake, and excited. Awake and relaxed. This is the meditation range between 8 and 13 hertz. Interesting. 8.73 is the range. They've tested people when they're in a deeply meditative state, people that do meditation, and there's tests. When someone is, one scientist I know that had a friend, so he had his friend, he knew his friend was a meditator, sit in a meditation room and tie a string to your finger, and when you're in a deep meditative state, just wiggle your finger. That'll be a signal to me that says you're in deep meditation. And then we'll do a CAT scan and see what's going on with your brain waves. So the meditative state is the same, the same frequency as the earth. Therefore, yogis naturally like going into the forest or quiet places where the frequency of the earth and the frequency of the meditative state were complementary, as opposed to frequencies in cities or frequencies in mode of ignorance places, bars and drug addiction places and things like that, crazy houses. The vibration frequency is different. Pete Seeger is another advocate of this. All it's saying basically is both physical and subtle emotional disorders can be assisted, or if not cured, by sound. And tested and tested and tested and tested, and it's effective. Now here's another section. This is Mysteries of Sound. This section is sound has form. Material sound has form, spiritual sound has form. There's a field that's called Cymatics, and what you're going to see is a gentleman who's, just randomly scattering powder on a flat surface. So there's 2 parts, the powder and the surface, and then he's going to make a vibration. And what's going to happen is the powder starts bouncing and bouncing and bouncing, and it forms a geometric pattern like a mandala. See the powder dancing? And then he's going to get 2 other instruments in this little short clip, and the powder's going to bounce around and make another pattern. On the wall behind him are many, many photographs of other patterns from other sound vibrations. Here's a third. person who developed this system, Cymatics, goes back to the 1960s. We'll see a slide in a moment. Where is it? Where is it? It's gone. What happened? Where's this fellow? Here it is. Dr. Jenny started the field of cymatics. What he did was he made a machine that he called a tonoscope, and it has three parts: something that generates sound, something that directs that sound through a channel, and then a surface that that sound is directed towards. And same thing, you put powder and sand and tried different things, and wanted to see what would happen. And sound makes a two-dimensional pattern. Interestingly, this is a particular photograph of the syllable Om. Now this is spiritual sound. I went ahead because the others were material sounds. But what is the Om syllable directed onto this flat surface? It creates a Shri yantra. And Shri yantra in the Vedic text is a two-dimensional depiction of the spiritual Vaikuntha planets. It's the spiritual realm. Here's a particular diagram of a mantra, an 18-syllable Gayatri mantra, and what it looked like. And those of you that know a little bit about Brahma Samhita, text 3, when Brahma receives, as you see in this painting, he receives from Krishna's flute a particular sound. That sound comes out his mouth in the form of a Gayatri mantra. And as he's chanting the mantra, he's meditating on this particular yantra. And you can see there's Sanskrit letters that are the letters of the mantra, and it's depicting the spiritual realm. It's depicting specifically Goloka from this particular mantra, just by mantra meditation and meditation upon yantra. So that's, I jumped ahead because that's spiritual sound, but material sound does the same thing. Now let's go back to material sound. Yeah. Here's music played when somebody is undergoing some medical procedure. They, over a period of time, they found that gentle, soft, classical music makes it easier for the person to heal. They require less sedative facilities so that they can be relaxed even during and after surgery. In some cases, they don't require anesthesia at all. Simply through sound. That is, it says across the top, cortisol is reduced. Cortisol is a stress inducer. Like here, the heavy music, rock music, etc., has a certain, that sound has the effect of ramping up cortisol within the body. Cortisol is like coffee, and cortisol, it has, like caffeine, it becomes, it increases, it increases the nervous system in such a way that more cortisol is reduced, or is released by the body, and it becomes addictive. And therefore people like to go to concerts again and again because they like the concert rush, or they like the cortisol rush, just from sound. So selecting your sound music should be wisely done. Many of you have been through Bhagavad Gita a bit, I understand, and so you know about the modes of nature. Sound, similarly, depending upon the source of the sound, it'll have different effects on the body and the mind, and in turn consciousness. That's human form. Here's a plant form. No, plants don't have ears. They don't have a brain. They don't have a nervous system, a spine and a nervous system, but they respond to music. When nice music is played, the plants grow better. In some cases, the plants literally embrace, they lean towards the sound and embrace the amplifier. When harsh sounds are produced, the opposite happens. They shrink away from that source of the sound. In some cases, they wither. Just from sound. Plants respond to sound. And here's a living entity that has a brain and a spine and ears. Mice or rats. So they tested, Tokyo University tested to see what happened when rats were exposed or mice were exposed to nice music or harsh music. So one of the things they did, it was nasty, but they did some surgery and injected within their body certain foreign elements. Their immune system of those listening to nice music, they rejected the foreign substance. And those that didn't, they died. Too bad. Poor mice. There are studies that show that the IQ of the mice is affected. The IQ in the sense that there's a maze and there's cheese at the end of the maze. And can you get to the cheese? So they played nice music, and those that heard nice music, they went very quickly through the maze. And those that did not hear nice music, but they heard the other kind of music, they got very bewildered and they couldn't find the cheese. And in some cases they became hyperactive and even cannibalistic. So be careful about your music choices. This I mentioned already. This is Schumann resonance. I don't know so much about it, but it's the same range as brain waves when one is in a meditative state. There's a whole thing. They have some statistic about how many times per hour bolts of lightning enter into the Earth's atmosphere, the Earth ionosphere, and so it charges the atmosphere around the Earth, and there's a certain resonance range that's natural for the Earth, regardless of the lightning, but there's a natural charge of the Earth planet, and that same charge, here it is, 7.83, is the same as the alpha wave resonance, or the meditative state. So we're in a good place. If you do meditation. Spiritual sound, mantra, you all know the meaning. Mind and delivering the mind. Here's the same verse from Bhagavad Gita that we heard. I'm the taste of water, the light of the sun and the moon, and the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. Pranavak sarva Vedeshu. Shabda K. That's the Sanskrit. Here's a little thing that's from YouTube. It's the chanting of Om. And we said something earlier about the chanting of Om. The chanting of Om is the primordial sound before creation. Obviously it exists during the period of cosmic manifestation. And those who chant Om, they like the experience of the experience is connecting with what's beyond matter. It's a spiritual sound vibration. And there's effects on the body and the mind for those who engage in chanting of sacred mantras. Yeah, here's the next thing. There's two documents that you should also receive if you haven't already received it. There's a document that from Jiva Goswami's writings, he gives scriptural reference to say that the name of Vishnu, one of the names, Vishnu Sahasranam, 1,000 names of Vishnu, one of them is Omkar, and other references and other references. The sound that you hear is the name of the Supreme. It's the name of the, we know Om as the reference to the Brahman effulgence, but it's also the Brahman effulgence come from the source of the Brahman effulgence, the person. And there's another PDF that says, with scriptural reference, that Omkar is already existing within all jivas. I'm going to stop this for just a second. When I was young, I had 3 sisters and an older brother. I was the youngest of 5 kids. And 2 of my sisters really liked piano. So my parents bought them a piano. And I watched, every couple of years, the piano tuner would come. I wanted to see what he was going to do to tune the piano. So I was a curious kid. He came in the house with what looked like a guitar case. But when he opened it up, it wasn't a guitar case. It wasn't a guitar inside. It was tuning forks. Let's say a C tuning fork. And there's so many tuning forks, the whole case full of tuning forks. And the other instrument was a rubber mallet. With the rubber mallet, he hit the tuning fork. And then the back of the piano was opened up, and he didn't touch the tuning fork to the C string, he just held it near it. And when he held it near it, the other strings on the other side, they didn't vibrate, but just that one vibrated because it was the right frequency. And if it was in proper tune, the vibration would move in, I don't know how to describe it, in patterns that were sympathetic. And if it was too loose or too tight, he would see just by looking at the vibrating string, and he had another instrument to tighten or loosen the string. He did that a number of times until it was tuned up. Then he put the C one away, and here comes F sharp, and held that near the piano chord or piano string, and that one vibrated, and in that way he went through the whole, part of the piano and tuned up the piano. Why am I giving this example? Om works the same way, or spiritual sound works the same way. That is to say, there's an already existing frequency, and when that spiritual sound is vibrated, it vibrates that frequency within. Supposing we don't vibrate that sound, then the frequency is already there, but it's not amplified. Just like a piano can sit there and doesn't make noise. But you strike the key and it makes a noise. So, or you put the tuning fork near it and it vibrates that chord or the piano string. The point is, spiritual sound awakens dormant consciousness, something that's already there. That's the principle of spiritual sound. And if you don't hear spiritual sound, that spiritual consciousness is going to remain dormant. Just like a piano that sits there without somebody playing it, or without holding the tuning fork near that piano string. Spiritual sound vibrates what's already there. I already mentioned this, I jumped ahead. This is Krishna's playing upon his flute, and Brahma hearing the sound of Krishna's flute, and when he hears is a Gayatri mantra, and therefore the Gayatri mantra has the effect that we showed here. It makes a sound, and the sound has form. Here's musical notes. Mentioned this already, the same cymatics. Musical notes, each musical note has a particular form. And you do it hundreds and hundreds of times, and if you have the right frequency, you're gonna get the same form every time, because sound has form. Material sound has form, spiritual sound has form. Here's a very ancient graph that looks very much like Umandala, if you know something about 5th Canto Bhagavatam. According to Vedic texts, just as sound moves with form or symmetry, the whole universe is also depicted in this two-dimensional manner that's very similar to the 5th canto description of Bhumandala, this earth planet. Some of you know something about music. Let's say, I understand a number of you participate in Mangalarti. Some do at least. And in the Mangalarti song, there's a certain raga, it's a morning raga. That's a raga, a morning raga. And then there's midday raga and evening ragas and different ragas for different times of the day. The idea of raga is just a combination of notes that induces a particular emotion or feeling or rasa within. And super classical music, not only there's certain melodies with the combinations of notes, but there's a mantra that accompanies each raga. And the mantra, if a person's very expert persons, they know that mantra is depicting a personality of the raga, and as they're singing or playing that raga, they're meditating upon that mantra, and they can envision the personality of the raga. And someone that's a very good listener can also envision the personality of the raga through the mantra. An example on the left, the painting on the left is Pingala raga, and it's a depiction of Radha Krishna on a swing. So there's certain raga, it's very subtle and refined, but sound has mystery to it. That's the idea. Now here's on the right side is a picture of strands of DNA. And in general, they have found that attached to DNA, there's little things called telomeres. I've just read this, I've not seen telomeres or DNA strands. But telomeres, they found, have two particular functions. They increase longevity, and they help combat disease if there's something is attacking the body. Strong telomeres means live longer and have better health. So the lady that found, I don't know what her name was, maybe Mrs. Telomere, Dr. Telomere, she found what makes those telomeres stronger. One of the things she found is brisk walking for 10 to 12 minutes every day makes 5% increase of telomeres. So when that discovery was made, it became a popular thing. Behind the popular thing was the science that telomeres are strengthened by brisk walking. And then the experimenters did other tests to find whether some other things. What's happening this evening is one of those other things. That is, when groups of people come together and exchange in a friendly manner in social connections, it strengthens telomeres by up to 5%. Diet, up to 5%, etc., etc. And much to their surprise, they found that people who engage in mantra meditation 12 minutes a day for 2 months their telomeres expand by 43%. There's nothing that compares. So, dear devotees, if you want to live long and have good health, chant mantra at least for 12 minutes a day for 2 months. Of course, more is also nice. But it's not a surprise. Yogis lived a long time. Look at some ancient paintings. I just have been spending some time preparing something for the Chinese devotees. And the paintings, whenever there's a sadhu, he always has beads in his hand. Old painting. Because they did mantra meditation. Like lots of it. Longevity and strong health. Natural. So modern science is verifying all of that. Plus, there's some other information. It increases UV light absorption for healthy DNA. Prayers, mantras, etc. Now specifically, the Hare Krishna mantra. What's special about the Hare Krishna mantra? Well, it's a spiritual sound like other spiritual sounds. That there's a at the University of Florida in Gainesville, some young man did his PhD thesis on the benefits of chanting Hare Krishna. Now when you do your PhD thesis, you can't just wing it. You got a bunch of other PhD guys up above you that look at your plan, they check out your procedures, and so forth and so on. It's got to pass through a lot of puppy wuffies to get your PhD. So his purpose was to study the effect of the Hare Krishna mantra on reducing stress, negative emotions, and tendency for drug abuse. Something like that. And the method was, and without going through all the details, there was another genuine Vedic mantra, there was the Hare Krishna mantra, and there was a placebo group. The placebo group means gobbledygook syllables, and they told them all, the people that were the experimenters, here's $30, we want to interview you, are you going to do it, and are you going to report honestly? That was the test. That was the criterion for selecting. And then, their procedures were examined by the review board. And there was found 1, 2, 3. The Hare Krishna mantra was most effective in all 3 categories. All of that is, what's the benefit to be derived from the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra on the physical and emotional level? Statistically verified over, some period of time. Part 2. How are we doing with time? I'll try to go quickly. There's, some of you have read Bhagavad Gita. Those of you that have read Bhagavad Gita, in chapter 2, verse 39, Krishna says, thus far I've described Sankhya, now I'm going to describe Buddha Yoga. Right? So what's Sankhya? That's this. That's what we're going to do. According to Sankhya philosophy in Bhagavad Gita, it's far more expanded in chapter 26 of Canto 3 Bhagavatam. And there it says, sound does the following 3 things. It conveys the idea of an object, it indicates the presence of a speaker that you can't see, and it constitutes the subtle form of ether. So it conveys an idea. I dyed my hair died. So depending on syntax and grammar and so forth, sound carries some meaning. Sound is a fundamental principle, the source of matter. This is Vedic conception. Source of matter and the key to become free from it. That's spiritual sound. Both the gross physical and the subtle mental realms, they're connected by sounds and ether. There's some detail I'm going to skip because as one gets more subtle and more subtle, there's more non-difference between the sound and the object that's being described by the sound. Here's a Prabhupada in Bombay, 74. The sound is not only in the ether, but sound is in the air. The sound is in the fire. The sound is also in water. The sound is also on the land. That is to say, the most subtle element is ether. Because it's the most subtle element, that means ether is within air. Because it's the most subtle element, ether is within fire. So because sound is conducted through ether, it's conducted through all elements also. So supposing there's a type of meditation where you hear the sound of a gong or a brass bowl, and you hit the brass bowl with a mallet. Anybody know about that kind of meditation? It's a Buddhist kind of meditation. It helps focus. And that's louder than the subtle form of ether. Just like passing through this room right now, there's a zillion other vibrations we don't have receivers for. But if somebody left their cell phone on and somebody calls you, you're going to hear the ring. Anyway, there's vibrations going on all the time. The ones that are on the physical, the more gross physical, the more audible. But it's audible even if it's not so clearly understood. I'm going to skip this. It just says, sounded as ether. Sound is sky's only quality. I'll go forward. I like this chart. You're going to see it twice. What this is showing is sound, that's material sound, passes through the ear, it goes to the mind. Any of the senses, sound is only one of the senses. Sense of touch also goes to the mind. Sense of smell also goes to the mind, etc. Sound goes to the mind. The intellect then analyzes, what's this sound? There's the function of each. Material sound goes through those channels. However, spiritual sound, and here's the Sanskrit terms for each one, the Sanskrit sound goes directly to the soul. For example, here on the altar there's a plant, there's a Tulsi plant, over here there's another plant. And when we have kirtan, the sound is going to the soul. Because within the plant, there's the gross physical feature that you can see, but you can't see the soul. But spiritual sound goes directly to the soul. It's just like the tuning fork example. When that spiritual sound vibrates, the soul consciousness also vibrates. And the more attentively one hears that spiritual sound, the more vibrational effect it's going to have on your spiritual consciousness, or reviving your spiritual consciousness. Bhaktisiddhanta says, people in material consciousness, they perceive the Hare Krishna mantra to be another material sound. And it's true. However, even they may have that conception, it's acting on the soul. Know it or not, like it or not, understand it or not, it's acting on the soul. And sound, the mystery of sound is it goes directly to the soul. I'm going to skip all this explanation. When we're chanting, here's the chanter, here's the sound, and the chanter is reaching Krishna through sound, and Krishna is reciprocating. Why? Or how to understand this? It is the sound on the spiritual plane is not different than the object. Sound on the spiritual plane is non-different than the object it's speaking of. Nama and Nami. It's grammar. The name and the object named are non-different. It's not true for material sound. I can sit in a chair, but I can't sit in the sound. I can quench my thirst by drinking water, but by saying water, it's not quenching my thirst. The object and the sound representing the object are not the same, material sound. Spiritual sound, they're non-different. So when we're chanting, know or not, we're in contact with who we are, and we're in contact with the source from which we've come, and there's reciprocation from the source from which we've come through that sound. And the more we're awake, revived in our original consciousness, the more we're aware. Unfortunately, we're entangled. This is now back to the Sankhya section of the Bhagavatam. Sound is entangling. Material sound is entangling. However, we can get unentangled by spiritual sound. That's the essence of what's being described here. Here's, and I like this painting, or photograph. There's a full moon, and there's a lake, and there's a reflection of the full moon in the lake. So according to the Bhagavatam, according to the mysteries of sound, every material sound is a reflection of spiritual sound. Here's Bhagavad Gita lecture from Srila Prabhupada. Whenever you hear some sound, you should know. This is vibration of the transcendental sound. The sound which we are vibrating, that is pure spiritual sound, that's mantra chanting. But any sound in the material world, that is reflection of that spiritual sound. So when you hear sound, you can remember God. Why? Because this is a reflection of that. This is not that, but this is a reflection. And thus you can remember through the reflection, the source of the reflection. Everything here in the material world is spiritual reflection. This is 11 years later, same topic. Everything here is, in the material world, is spiritual reflection covered by the material elements. So when this sound is purified, or when you catch up the spiritual sound, then your spiritual life begins. Mysteries of sound, it's not easy to understand. Here's a detail I like, so I'm just sharing it. In Brahma Samhita, it mentions this is the depiction, the two-dimensional depiction of Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna's planet. There's Radha and Krishna in the middle, and so forth and so on. There's Kalpavriksha trees, there's cows, there's abodes of the gopis and abodes of the associates of Krishna, etc. It mentions that there's in corners, each of the corners, there's tridents. And those tridents are protectors of the Dham. And the tridents themselves are mantras. For example, in the northeastern corner is up here, here's the mantra. And the Dham, Goloka Dham, is protected by mantra, or a trident. I'm going quickly, trying to go quickly. This is, when Prabhupada was young, there was he called it a gramophone, or it was called a gramophone. So his point here is, this is from a Bhagavatam class in 1968. When you hear the sound that comes from a gramophone, or that which reproduces recorded sound, it's non-different than the person, although it's different with the person because the person isn't in this box. But it's spiritual, it's sound of the person. So if it's the sound of Krishna, like Bhagavad Gita, or the mantra, etc., the spiritual sound, it's non-different. Non-different. And therefore, we can enter the spiritual world through sound. This is a painting from Brihad Bhagavatamrita, where the Guru is giving Gopakumar a mantra in his left ear, and it's one of our same mantras that we receive in ISKCON. One of the mantras that we receive in ISKCON was given to Gopakumar, and just by chanting this mantra, many things happened, but he eventually regained his spiritual position in Goloka Vrindavan, and Krishna greeted him, saying, I've been waiting for you to come back. I thought in this lifetime, but you didn't come. In this lifetime, you didn't come, but finally you've come. Krishna was very happy to have Gopakumar return. But the return, the covering is through sound, and the return is through sound. Commentary. As the beginning of this material world is from the sound vibration, I think the scientists also agree, we already read this, that everything comes from sound. The sound vibration is the Hare Krishna mantra. Prabhupada lecture. The hearing ability in the individual spirit soul is far less compared to that of the Supreme Lord. Bhagavatam 2:6-3, Lord Brahma says about the Virat Rupa, this is the universal form. His ears hear from all sides and are receptacles for the Vedas, and his sense of hearing is the generating center of the sky and of all kinds of sound. The soul's poor hearing ability is a disadvantage. However, the mercy of the pure devotee, when received and nurtured, is the living entity's saving grace. I'm just going to go forward. This is the final slide. This is very nice. This is Srila Prabhupada. It's a YouTube recording, along with nice music, Lord of Goodness music, waves and birds and nice background accompanying music. It's Srila Prabhupada chanting the Hare Krishna mantra. I know some people that listen to this each morning for as part of their daily japa. And they chant along with Prabhupada.
Krishna Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram.
Now the effect of hearing sound vibration from a pure devotee is incalculably beneficial. That was my first meeting with Srila Prabhupada, was hearing him chanting. As a university student, Prabhupada was on tour with Allen Ginsberg chanting Hare Krishna on stage. Allen Ginsberg was playing bongo drum and swaying his head back and forth. Prabhupada was playing cartels, just singing Hare Krishna. It's a very simple lecture, but it was, subjectively, my life was transformed by that. So it's still here, just sharing. And that's our presentation for this evening. It's a little involved, and people that have a science background, I think they'll like the science part of it. But material sound has an impact on the body and the mind on many, many, many levels. spiritual sound certainly has an impact on the body and the mind, and more importantly, even the soul. And the awakening of spiritual consciousness is made possible through spiritual sound. The more you can hear, and the more attentively and qualitatively you can hear and absorb yourself in that spiritual sound, you're on the way back to the spiritual world. And science, to some degree, has helped us to understand how that's a fact. And your experiencing will also tell you. Yeah, so that's it. Let's just turn the lights on. This one.
Raj, I have a humble request. May I plug in my laptop and share the QR code if anyone wants to scan and get some of the documents?
Oh, okay, sure. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Alrighty. So if you're interested in Maharaj's presentation and would like to look at some of the documents he shared, it will be on this QR code, so feel free to scan that up and you don't have to read all my private conversations.
Oh, that's full screen. And two.
Is that too
One
much?
off the screen. That's better.
So,
Yes?
mhm.
I don't know how this is. I'm a dinosaur. I don't understand how this works.
I'm trying to figure it out myself.
Take a photo.
And then what happens when you take the photo?
It sends you to the link.
Oh, the photo sends you to the link,
Yeah.
and then the link you can download from the link.
Yeah.
Smartphones are real smart now.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like a barcode.
Huh?
It's like a barcode.
Like a barcode.
Barcode. For dinosaurs, barcode, and smart code, and. Okay. So any thoughts you'd like to share on what you heard or comments?
Questions?
Yes.
I just wanted to say I thought this was pretty auspicious you're having this talk right now. Within the past 10, 14 days in my japa practice, I've been messing with different frequencies. You can feel it in the different chakras as you chant,
No kidding.
for sure.
No kidding.
For sure. You chant higher, you feel it higher, you chant lower, you feel it lower.
It's not the pitch, but it's the frequency.
Well, the pitch is the frequency, to
Okay.
a certain degree. Because it vibrates at a different, a higher pitch vibrates quicker than a lower pitch is lower. You feel it.
Huh. For the past 2 weeks you've been experimenting.
I've just started 10 days, 14 days ago.
Hmm.
Cool. I like to play around.
Hmm.
But I thought that was pretty cool. They spoke about it in the chakras.
Yes, yes, yes.
It's
Yes,
all
yes,
true.
yes.
I also studied music in college, so I took physics, science of sound.
But
Always been.
that was a few years ago.
That was
probably.
quite, yeah.
Yeah, so
That
now
wasn't past 10 years.
they're much more,
It's always evolving.
yes. And specifically how it affects chakras.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably, you didn't know anything about it when you were in college.
No, they didn't. There wasn't. There's whole, psychiatric or psychological.
That was Cymatical,
Yeah,
along with music,
yeah. But
That's good.
they're using it for
a lot.
medicine now. Yeah.
Now it's in, my understanding is, it's becoming a bit of a trend. Before it was kind of like out there. Like, people, avant-garde people and alternative medicine
What do you
people.
call it now or whatever? Yeah.
But it's now becoming an internal. It's becoming and creeping into the.
I know a guy who travels with gongs.
He does
He
what?
does gong meditation. He has a whole set of gongs,
Hmm.
and he does sound baths and.
It. However, gongs aren't para.
Yeah, it's not the same as projecting out of your own.
Well, aside from your own, it's not para. It's not transcendental. It can help fix the mind for sure, because it has that power. But it doesn't go to the soul.
Not necessarily healing into your
To
actual.
the mind,
Right.
but not to the soul.
Mhm.
Big, big, big difference. big difference. Maybe your friend can pick up on that. You know, it's something that would make it, I would think, something would make it easier for somebody that does what your friend is doing, is have this Om chanting in the background. Because then there's spiritual, it's not, you know, it's not Krishna's
It's
name,
not just a material kind of
Yes.
vibration, right.
in addition to the gongs and all that. And then what to speak if he can get the Hare Krishna
If
mantra
you
going
can get the bomb.
along with along with his, you know, effective demonstration of
Well,
gongs.
that's all we really need is a pair of cartels and a voice, right?
That's what Prabhupada did. That's what he did.
Right.
He didn't have instruments. He had little cartels. There's a nice recording.
I've heard that. I like that.
Okay, good. Good. Anything else? Yes.
Yes. Why did you just say that the sound of the gong does not reach to the soul like some other things do?
Because it's a material sound, it's not a para, which means transcendental. So, for example, from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, there's prakriti and there's para prakriti. The living entity is para prakriti. We're also energy of Krishna, but we're para prakriti. And spiritual sound is para sound, para shabda, transcendental sound. Gongs are prakriti, not para prakriti. So it doesn't go directly to the soul. So the soul has coverings, and coverings can be moved through sound. Coverings are moved through sound. They can be moved up and down, just like his description of pitch and how it's affecting things. Just like this, you know, the kirtan at the beginning. It started here and then went here, then it went there, and then went back down again. So pitch, or that's music minus spiritual sound, will certainly affect the coverings. However, it doesn't affect consciousness per se. But spiritual sound, para sound, affect consciousness, the very existence of who we are. So gongs don't do that.
And by the same measure, like a tuning fork would not either.
Well, exactly. The example of the tuning fork was to show this vibration moves that kind of matter. And it doesn't move the one on this side or that side, it just moves that one. And it doesn't touch it, just holds it near the piano chord, the piano string, and it starts to vibrate. Similarly, because para sound vibrates who we are. It's a process of self-realization, not just a process of meditation. It is a process of meditation, but it's a process of awakening who we really are. That kind of meditation. Is it clear? You have more on this.
Clearer. So if I were to say like chant Om, then that would be the para sound?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's now within the realm of para sound, there are categories. That para sound can awaken the sense of your spiritual identity, but not the form of your spiritual identity. But I belong to the category of, so the intellect can do that. Intellectually, I belong to the category of spirit.
So what about a computer recording? Like, does it require our intention
Vocal
or
cords?
whatever computer recording
It-
will do the same?
That's this gramophone example.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah, like that. So it has effect for sure. I could say it twice. It has effect for sure. However, the vibration that's directly spoken has even greater effect.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
I'll just, on a subjective I have a little thing about this big, fits in my hand. It has about 2,000 recordings of Srila Prabhupada, and I listen to it every day, a minimum for 2 hours. You know, while I'm doing some other stuff and brushing my teeth and stuff like that. I'm eating a meal or something, listening. It's not the same as sitting in a class, but it definitely has effect. And those of us that had the good fortune of hearing Prabhupada chant, as opposed to hearing a recording of him chant, it's very special. No doubt about it. So, but it's on the other hand, it's not different because it's the recording of. There's difference and non-difference. But it's especially fortunate to hear directly. Is that
Yes, I think so.
okay?
Thank you.
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm just reflecting on the sound and on how it affects plants, and the other thing that we consume is food, and so how is the sound will affect the food that we eat?
Oh, you know the answer.
Yeah,
You just want everyone to hear the answer.
yeah, prasadam.
Yeah. Okay. What's the difference between food that's offered and food that's not offered? What makes it? What is it? And it's simultaneously two things. It's the devotional effort to offer that unto the Supreme, and by that bhakti or devotional effort to offer to the Supreme, that which it makes that connection. The offering is again connected to the Supreme, because that thing that you're offering, where did it come from? It came from the source of everything. The act of offering unto the Supreme reconnects it with the source, or it spiritualizes, becomes prasadam instead of food. And then the other is mantra. There are mantras that are recited that's part of the procedure of offering that also sanctifies. We don't just offer silently, we offer with mantra. And that further sanctifies or spiritualizes. And then, therefore, when you take that which has been offered in that manner, it spiritualizes the body for those two prongs of spiritualizing the food that you're taking. And it goes back some steps too. While preparing, the consciousness of the cook has a significant impact on the experience of the person who eats. And you take them some steps back. The person that's purchasing and then cleaning and cutting, and then the one who's actually stirring and cooking, etc. The consciousness behind the act is transmitted in the act of eating. So it's important to take foods that are prepared, ideally prepared by one who is in pure consciousness, and then offered to Krishna in a sanctified way or standard way, devotional way. And then it becomes spiritualized. It spiritualizes your existence. At the end, I've got some prasadam I'm going to pass out. You can feel spiritualized after. You want to say something?
I do. A couple of the people here have a strong Judeo-Christian background. You mentioned how the Vedas connects to the modern scientific understanding. Sound is the premise of creation. But interestingly enough, in the beginning of, say, John 1, it said, "In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God." But interestingly enough, when you take back the Greek and you retranslate it to English, the word actually translates out better to sound. It's more accurate to say sound. So I find it interesting that even in the Judeo-Christian worldview, on top of science and the Vedas, that in the beginning was the sound, and the sound was with God and was God. That's even their kind of rendition. So I think that's pretty cool. And
Speaking of that, the Hebrews had also discovered, maybe they got it from the people from India, that the sounds have these effects on physical objects where they're able to create patterns, like what we were shown in the lecture video earlier. They did similar things with putting like sand on drums and other objects and making sounds to find the patterns that they would create. And they were descended from Abraham, who actually came from the Far East before he got to the land where they would eventually settle. So he might have gotten that knowledge, possibly, brought it over from them, maybe.
very, very nice.
Anybody else? Yes.
I would like to add to what you said. So this was a story that my Sanskrit professor told us back when I was in my college. So he told us how mantra could actually make a person. Yeah.
How mantra does what?
How mantra can affect a person.
Okay.
So there was this robber who used to rob all the people, all the passengers who would travel from one village to another village.
Really?
Yeah.
Not nice.
So one day he was robbing a couple of sages who were passing through that forest, and then the sage asked him, "Why are you doing this?" And then the robber told, "This is for my family." And then the sage asked him, "Go and ask your family. Since you're robbing the people who are coming along this way, you have accumulated a lot of sin. So go back to your family and ask, since they're taking everything everything that you have, the physical material, physical stuff that you have accumulated so far, since they're sharing it with you,
And he said,
why don't
no
you
way.
go them and ask if they'll share your sins as well?" And then this guy went back and asked his family, "So I have accumulated a lot of sin. Are you guys willing to, share my sins as well?" And then his family said, "No, why
No
would we
way.
do that?" So then he came back to the sage and told him, "No, my family did not agree with that." And then the sage told, "Yes, that's fine." And then the sage suggested him to, in order to get rid of all the sins that he has done, to chant the word Rama, Rama again and again, again and again, again and again. Then this robber started chanting Rama, and then one day, after a lot of years chanting this Rama word, he came out of his there was he was standing for so long that birds were keeping nests around him, and he could not even feel the environment around him. So one day, while he was walking back, once he stopped doing and walking back, he saw a bird hit by a arrow by a hunter, and then he said a sloka, and that sloka was the first sloka of Ramayana, and that guy was none other than Valmiki. So that's how sound can, mantra, chanting a mantra can turn a robber into a great sage.
Ratnakar was the dacoit. Ratnakar.
His name was
Yeah, his name was Ram. Yeah.
And the sage was not.
Valmiki was the sage. Excuse me, Narada was the sage.
No.
Okay, looks like we're done. Okay. Thank you all very much for coming. It's only 8:15. Kind of late, right?
So let's give applause to